What's up, guys? Josh Payton here from 24/7 Sports, joined as I am this time every week by National Director of Recruiting, Steve Wiltfong. It is the Wiltfong Recruiting Whip Around. And Steve, we're starting this week and we're finishing this week talking about number ones at different positions. Let's go down to IMG Academy, Bradenton, Florida. That is the current home to the number one overall offensive tackle prospect, J.C. Latham. And Steve, I've looked at that crystal ball for a long time, and I've seen Ryan Day, Ohio State Buckeyes, but now all of a sudden, here comes Nick Saban in Alabama. What's happening there?
Well, it's all of a sudden on the 24/7 Sports crystal ball, but Alabama has been prominent in this recruitment at least for the last month, and I think it's a school that's always been near the top of J.C. Latham's list. The Wisconsin native, Ohio State and LSU have been the schools with the most buzz throughout this recruitment. He was going to visit Ohio State for their spring game and then return for an official. He was going to go to LSU for their spring game. That was going to be an official. There wasn't much talk about Alabama back then, but it's certainly heated up here during what I've been calling Zoom season, with these college coaches getting on the Zoom meetings with these top prospects. I know J.C. Latham's had some great meetings with Alabama offensive line coach Kyle Flood. I know he's had some great meetings with offensive coordinator Steve Sarkisian. Of course, there's been dialogue with Nick Saban. And I think Alabama, first and foremost, has been able to show a path from IMG Academy to starting lineup at Alabama as a true freshman to probable ultimately first-round draft pick, because that's going to be Evan Neal's trajectory, as he was a former five-star at IMG, obviously, that started at Alabama this year. That's tracking to be one of Alabama's next first-round picks. And speaking of Alabama first-round picks, the way that they've developed the offensive line position, Jedrick Wills, the latest to hear his name called in the first round of the NFL draft. Nobody is developing offensive linemen better than Alabama right now in college football. J.C. Latham, he's a super serious person. And I think that his personality and mentality fits in with the kind of player that generally chooses Alabama. Talking to sources around this recruitment, I don't think anyone knew that he was about to drop his commitment, which I think is going to come here in the next week. But I do think every source I talk to believes that if J.C. Latham is announcing here within the next week, that they think it will be Alabama. I don't think it's LSU. Maybe Ohio State's on life support in this recruitment. I think Oklahoma's out. So I like Alabama right now for J.C. Latham and what could really get a special offensive line class rolling for the Crimson Tide this cycle.
Yeah, you talked last week about Alabama still being in it for a lot of other elite offensive line prospects, so that's interesting to watch. Now let's head about as far away from IMG Academy as we can and still stay in the lower 48. Let's go up to Washington State, and let's talk about Emeka Egbuka. That's the number one wide receiver in America, 5 stars next to his name as well, and familiar programs next to his name. What's the latest with him, Steve?
Well, I think this is better news for Ohio State here in this segment as we talk about Egbuka. I love where Ohio State's position. If he had to decide right now, I think that he would pick Ryan Day, Brian Hartline in the Buckeyes. I think from the relationship with the staff to the player development to the offense, in Ohio State typically having a top 5 offense under Ryan Day's watch. I think Ohio State has a lot going for it. Also, the way he feels he fits in the locker room. I think he has his parents' blessing to go to Ohio State as well. I think the last hurdle is the Oklahoma Sooners. I think that he wants to take a visit to Norman. I think Lincoln Riley and the Sooners have done a good job, and similar to Ohio State typically having a top 5 offense, obviously Oklahoma does too. Obviously Oklahoma's had receivers with their name called high in the NFL draft. And I think that in a perfect world, Egbuka would like to take a visit to Oklahoma and see what the Sooners have to offer before making a decision. But as things stand right now, I like Ohio State, and I like my crystal ball forecast in favor of the Buckeyes.
Steve, it seems like we cannot talk enough. We can't do enough segments on Caleb Williams, number one quarterback in the country in the D.C. area, 5 stars next to his name. And we've had, again, the familiar programs next to his name. But the thinking lately has not been so much who leads or who's in it for him. It's what's a timetable? Do we have any update there?
Yeah, I think by the time we drop this video on the 24/7 Sports website, we're probably going to have a decision date. I think it's going to be within the month. I think early July is the target date for Caleb Williams. Talking to his family, they kept telling me it's going to be done sooner rather than later, and I think early July is what they've kind of identified as the right time. I know Mike Loxley in Maryland have a big presentation that they want to give Caleb and his family on why the trajectory of the Maryland program, the arrow is sky high. Because I think that they're trying to show him that they can be just as successful with him at the helm as Oklahoma has been with the likes of Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray. I love Oklahoma here for Caleb Williams. I think that a lot of things will have to happen for the Sooners not to win this recruitment, and I think that almost ties back to Emeka Egbuka in our previous segment. I know Caleb and Emeka Egbuka have been talking. Now, I don't think that's going to be the ultimate difference in a recruitment when Ohio State can say, hey, we signed CJ Stroud at 24/7 Sports 5-star last year. We have Kyle McCord committed, who Ohio State really had their pick of the litter early in the quarterback cycle. But I do think that's something that could make Oklahoma a little more intriguing for Emeka Egbuka when Caleb Williams does announce for the Sooners. And I think that Oklahoma is in good shape to have a commitment from Caleb Williams within the month of this video.
It's not slowing down, folks. He's the guy to listen to. Steve Wiltfong, National Director of Recruiting. Keep it locked on 247sports.com for all the latest. Steve, see you next week.
Take care.